This happened a few years ago when I returned to my hometown for Easter. I was 32 and had spent my career studying local folklore. I thought this gathering would be a chance to reconnect with family and find material for my book on regional traditions. We met at our old Victorian home, filled with creaky floors and the sweet scent of cherry blossoms. I felt comfortable there, but I think I never stopped thinking about what happened next. The evening started out fine. We sat around the dinner table, jokes flying and laughter filling the air. That was until my uncle leaned back and started sharing an eerie story. He spoke about a relative who had vanished during a family gathering long ago. When he said it, the room grew quiet. The air felt heavy, and I could sense tension creeping in. Everyone chuckled nervously, but something felt off, like a nagging suspicion I couldn't shake. As the night went on, I noticed strange details. The family pictures on the wall seemed to shift slightly. I squinted, but swore I saw faces I didn't recognize. My heart raced, and suddenly, laughter lost its warmth. Whispers floated around the room, blaming mysterious circumstances for my long-lost relative's disappearance. I was confused. Were they joking? It was hard to tell. That night, I tossed and turned, haunted by dreams filled with the faces of those unknown to me. I woke up feeling cold, a chill that wouldn't go away. I tried brushing it off, thinking the old house was just drafty, but I couldn't shake the feeling. Was it the house or the stories that unsettled me? At breakfast the next day, I brought up the story again. I wanted answers. "Does anyone know what really happened?" I asked. They exchanged uneasy glances. The mood shifted again. My aunt said it was an accident, but her voice trembled. I noticed the way their eyes darted around, avoiding mine. Maybe it was all in my head, but it felt like they were hiding something. Every night after, the same dreams returned, and each morning, I felt more lost. I began to doubt everyone and myself. It got so bad, I didn't want to be there anymore. I felt like I was too close to a mystery meant to stay buried. On my last night, I couldn't take it. I walked over to the pictures on the wall, touching the frames, almost hoping to find some kind of secret. That's when I saw him. My long-lost relative's face staring back at me. The only picture I hadn't recognized. I gasped. How could they have left it like that? I turned around to show my family, but they were gone. Empty chairs and a faint echo of laughter hung in the air. Then I heard a whisper, low and close. "Why are you here?" It wasn't one of them. I froze, knowing I wasn't alone. I stood there, heart racing, staring into the space where my family had just been. The whisper gripped me, and I felt the temperature drop. It was as if the shadows in the room shifted, curling around me. I glanced at the photo again, and fear washed over me. Was it just my imagination, or did the figure in the picture seem to move? "Hello?" I called out, hoping to dismiss the anxiety rising in my chest. My voice echoed back, the word frail and lonely. The silence felt heavy, wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. I forced my feet to move, driven by both dread and determination. I tiptoed out of the dining room, then down the dimly lit hallway. The once familiar path felt foreign, shadows lurking in the corners of my vision. As I moved, a growing sense of urgency took hold. I needed answers. More than ever, I felt I was being drawn deeper into my family's secrets. I headed for the attic. It had always been a place of forgotten memories, filled with old boxes and dusty furniture. The stories of the past were buried up there, and maybe, just maybe, I would find something to explain that photo and the whispers. The wooden steps creaked loudly beneath me, each sound amplifying the tension in my stomach. I paused at the top and caught my breath, peering into the dark room. I switched on the old light bulb hanging by a thin wire. The light flickered, casting an eerie glow. Dust motes danced in the air, and I could almost hear the whispers of the past. Boxes lined the walls, and I began sorting through them, trying to calm my racing heart. The first couple yielded nothing but old clothes and faded holiday decorations. Frustration mounted. Then, I stumbled upon a small leather-bound journal wedged between two larger boxes. Its cover was worn, but as I opened it, the pages were surprisingly intact. The handwriting was neat, clear yet elegant. I scanned the entries and felt a chill as I read about gatherings and strange occurrences. The words spoke of traditions whose meanings had been forgotten over time, of rituals that were once taken seriously. And then, it mentioned the same long-lost relative, the one who had vanished. Each sentence unraveled deeper layers of fear, but it was the last entry that made my blood run cold. It detailed an event from decades before, describing a particular family Easter when things had gone horribly wrong. "Fear the shadow that follows," I read. "We uncovered secrets best left unseen, and now something is watching." I dropped the journal like it burned my hands. Had my family participated in something dark? I looked around, suddenly feeling exposed. My heart pounded in my chest as a distant sound echoed from below. A door creaked, and I knew I wasn't alone anymore. Just then, a knock on the attic door jolted me. My family's laughter faded away, replaced by something sinister that hung in the air. I stepped cautiously toward the door. "Who's there?" I called out, but all I got in reply was silence. Then, I heard a whispered voice, familiar yet distorted, saying my name. "Why did you come back?" I turned away from the door, panic gripping me. I hadn't come back to be part of whatever this was, but now there seemed to be no way out. I stood frozen, the air thick around me. The voice was unmistakably my mother's, but twisted, as if it had been filtered through a dark reality. "Why did you come back?" rang in my ears, repeating like a taunt. I could feel the dread boiling inside me. It was no longer just my imagination. Something sinister lingered in this house, and it was aware of me. I forced myself to be brave. I couldn't stay in this attic anymore. But just as I turned back to the door, the light flickered again, this time more violently, plunging the attic into darkness. I stumbled, my heart racing. It felt like the shadows were closing in, tightening their grip. I fumbled for the doorknob, desperate to escape. The door creaked open on its own, revealing the pitch blackness of the hallway. I hesitated. What was waiting for me out there? I glanced back at the journal, the words still echoing in the back of my mind. Fear the shadow that follows. Whatever had happened years ago was coming back to haunt us. Gathering every ounce of courage, I stepped into the hallway. I could hear my family's laughter again, this time muffled. It sent shivers down my spine. I followed the sound, half dragged by a morbid curiosity. As I made my way through the house, I felt an oppressive weight settle on my shoulders. It was as if the house itself was alive, watching. The laughter suddenly stopped. In an instant, the silence was deafening. I paused, straining to hear anything. My pulse raced as I crept toward the living room. Before I could reach the doorway, a sudden chill swept over me, making the hair on my neck stand on end. I glanced behind, half expecting to see something lurking in the shadows, but there was nothing. I turned back, and that's when I saw it. A figure standing in the living room, back turned to me. "Mom!" I called out, my voice shaking. The figure didn't move. I took a step closer, heart pounding. As I neared, darkness seemed to swirl around the shape, creating a void amidst the light of the room. I could make out elements of a dress, something my mother would wear, but the figure felt wrong somehow. It was still, yet the air hummed with energy, almost vibrating. "Please," I whispered. "What is happening?" Nothing responded. Instead, the figure began to turn slowly. The moment I caught a glimpse of its face, I felt my stomach drop. It wasn't my mother. The face wore a haunting smile, stretched unnaturally across a pale visage. It was the echo of a person long gone, a blurry memory of someone I had never met. I stumbled back, gasping. The figure raised a finger, pointing toward the family photo on the wall. In that instant, the blood drained from my face as I saw it. The figure in the photo had changed. It now looked like the apparition standing in front of me. I bolted for the front door, panic crashing over me, but something blocked my path. I turned around only to find that the living room was empty. The laughter returned, now closer than ever, echoing from the darkest corners of the house. "Did you think you could leave?" It was all around me now, the sound swarming. I ran. I had to find a way out before whatever was in that house made its next move. But each step felt heavier, dragged down by the weight of despair and secrets that were never meant to be uncovered. I dashed through the hallway, my breath hitching with each frantic step. The laughter grew louder, more frenetic, echoing against the walls. It felt like a living thing, wrapping around me, reaching out to pull me back. I couldn't allow it to win. I reached the kitchen, my heart hammering as I glanced around. The space was illuminated with fragments of moonlight slipping through the window, casting eerie shadows. I searched for a way out, but the back door felt impossibly far. As I turned, the laughter faded, replaced by a soft whispering. It was barely audible, but the voice was unmistakable. "Come join us." A cold sweat broke out over my skin. Where were they? I ripped open the kitchen drawer. Utensils clattered chaotically, but my focus was razor-sharp. I fished out a large knife, its steel glimmering in the dark. I felt foolish, armed with nothing but a kitchen knife against whatever was haunting me. But still, I felt a spark of determination. I wouldn't back down. I pushed through the back door and stepped outside, the chill hitting me like a wave. The yard was shrouded in darkness. I hadn't really looked at it before. Everything felt wrong. The trees loomed like sentinels, their branches reaching out like skeletal hands. I squinted, peering into the shadows, half expecting to see something lurking, watching me. Just as I was about to turn back, I saw movement near the old swing set. A figure, small and childlike, swayed back and forth. My stomach dropped. It was dressed in white, just like the figure I had seen before. "Mom," I called, my voice cracking. The air was thick with an unshakable chill. The figure stopped swinging and turned toward me, its face still hidden beneath the shadows of a hood. It raised a hand and pointed, toward the tree line. "Come." I felt rooted to the spot, unable to move. "What do you want?" I shouted, feeling irrationally small. But the child figure didn't respond. It just turned and started walking into the woods, its movements eerily fluid and graceful. Without thinking, I followed. Each step was hesitant. "Wait!" I called, desperate. I had to see who it was. I had to know what was happening. The whispers grew louder, signaling my approach, taunting me to keep going deeper into the darkness. I stumbled, my feet catching on roots and rocks as I trailed the figure. Why wasn't I running back? Why was I so compelled? Suddenly, I entered a clearing. It felt alive with energy, as if something had been waiting. The air pulsed around me, thick, like a fog. And then, right in the center of the clearing, I saw them. Figures huddled together, faces obscured, all looking up at me. "Join us," they chanted in unison. Their voices harmonized eerily, the same melody that taunted me back in the house. My heart raced as I realized the truth. Their eyes were all blank, reflecting only darkness. I stepped back instinctively, but there was no way out. The woods felt like they were closing in, trapping me in this nightmare. My instincts screamed against what they wanted me to do. But as I stood there, paralyzed, everything around me went silent. Then, the child figure raised its hood, revealing its face. An echo of what I might have looked like. The eerie grin stretched across its face froze my heart. There was no time left. The laughter crept back in, surrounding me. I finally mustered my resolve. It was now or never. But every time I tried to turn away, I felt a force pulling me back toward them. I had to break free before it was too late. Just as I felt my feet move, the world around me shifted. The clearing faded, and darkness enveloped me. "Did you really think you'd escape?" The voices echoed, and the last thing I felt was a cold grip on my shoulder. Then everything went dark. I woke up with a jolt, gasping for air. My heart was racing, and my mind was a tangled web of confusion and fear. I was no longer in the woods. Instead, I was in my own living room, sprawled across the couch. The TV flickered quietly in the background, casting long shadows against the walls. Had it all been a dream? I pushed myself up, scanning the room. Everything seemed normal. Too normal. The sunlight streamed through the windows, painting bright patches on the floor. But the unsettling feeling lingered like a ghost in the air. I couldn't shake the sensation that something was very wrong. Determined to shake off the dread, I stepped into the kitchen. The knife I had taken from the drawer lay on the table, its metallic sheen reflecting the light. I hadn't put it there. Panic surged through me as I recalled the laughter, the child in white, and the figures in the clearing. My mind raced. Had someone, or something, been in my house? I glanced around, half expecting to see a figure lurking in the shadows. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding small. No answer. The silence felt oppressive. I grabbed the knife, feeling its weight in my hand, grounding me with a sense of purpose. Pushing down my fear, I opened the back door. The yard was still, yet the air was heavy and charged. The trees stood tall and silent, as if they had secrets to guard. I hesitated. Should I go back to the spot where I saw the figure? Part of me needed to know if it was real, or if my mind was playing tricks on me. With resolve, I stepped outside. The grass felt cool underfoot as I made my way toward the woods. I reached the edge where the trees loomed. The memories came rushing back, the soft whisper, the haunting call. With each step, I felt the magnetic pull again, and then I saw it. The swing set was empty, but the air felt electric. My feet moved on their own, carrying me deeper into the woods. The further I walked, the more I felt something shift around me. A tangible presence that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. That's when I saw it again, the figure. It stood at the far end of the clearing, gazing into the distance, shrouded in the same white fabric. My heart pounded as I called out, "What do you want from me?" The words echoed, swallowed by the dense air. In response, the figure turned slowly. It raised its pale hand and motioned for me to come closer. My blood ran cold. I wanted to run, to escape this nightmare, yet I felt compelled to move forward. Just before I entered the clearing, the laughter erupted again, a cacophony of voices merging together in a terrifying chorus. My breath quickened as shadows began to dance around me. They were drawn to the sound, shifting and swirling like angry clouds. I felt the knife cold against my palm, a small comfort in the chaos. I couldn't succumb to their calling. I wouldn't join them. I turned to run, but an invisible force pulled me back. My heart raced, and adrenaline surged through me. I had to fight it. But then, everything erupted into chaos. The ground trembled beneath me, and branches snapped. I was surrounded by dark shapes, their blank eyes boring into me as I staggered back. And suddenly, I remembered something. A spark of clarity. "Not today!" I shouted defiantly, clutching the knife tightly. I had to find a way out. I had to break this trance before I became another voice in their sinister symphony. But as darkness fell in on me once more, I doubted whether I could escape. The moment I shouted, everything changed. The shadows recoiled, as if my defiance had momentarily stunned them. I took advantage of the split second and bolted in the opposite direction, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. The trees seemed to close in around me, their branches clawing at my arms as I pushed through, desperate to escape. I didn't stop running until I reached the edge of the woods. My lungs burned, but I didn't dare look back. All I knew was that the figures were not just shadows. They were alive, and they could follow me if I let them. As I emerged into the sunlight, a strange unease settled over me. It was too calm here. I turned my head cautiously, scanning the yard for any signs of movement. But it was still, just like before. The world outside the woods felt unreal. I walked back towards my house slowly, the knife still clutched tightly in my hand. Inside, everything felt off. I noticed the TV was now frozen on a static screen. The hushed buzzing echoed in the silence. I moved to turn it off, but a glint caught my eye from the corner of the room. Beside the couch lay a small white ribbon. It looked like it belonged to the figure in the woods. My stomach knotted as I crouched down to pick it up. What was it doing here? I stood there, anxiety coursing through me. I knew I had to put the ribbon back in the woods, but a part of me hesitated. The thought of returning to that clearing filled me with dread. What if the figure was waiting for me? What if the laughter returned? As I turned to head back outside, my phone buzzed violently on the coffee table. I jumped, heart in my throat. I grabbed it, hoping for a message from a friend or someone to distract me. Instead, the screen lit up with an unknown number. No name, just numbers. My heart sank. I answered tentatively. "Hello?" Static crackled on the other end, and then I heard a faint whisper. "Come play with us." My blood froze. I felt that same pull again, tugging at me from within. It was almost like they were in my head now. "Who is this?" I demanded, but there was only silence. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the line went dead. I dropped the phone as if it had burned me. I felt a wave of panic wash over me. Were they coming for me? I staggered backward, realization dawning on me. This wasn't about the woods. It was about me, about pulling me into their world. They wanted me. I glanced out the window, half convinced I'd see the figure staring back at me, its white fabric glowing in the daylight. Too much was happening too fast. I couldn't think straight. Forcing my legs to move, I made my way to the front door. The thought of getting back to that clearing haunted me, but staying here felt just as dangerous. I needed to confront whatever was chasing me, even if it meant going back to the dark woods. Bracing myself, I stepped outside once more. This time, I didn't hesitate. I began walking towards the tree line, heart pounding with every step. I would end this. I would find out what they wanted, no matter the cost. And then, just before I crossed the threshold into the woods, I heard the laughter again. It was closer this time, laughing with a joy that sent chills down my spine. I turned to look, but there was nothing there. No shadows, no figures, only the woods beckoning me. But I couldn't ignore the fear swelling inside me. What awaited me in there? I hesitated, knowing I had to choose, to plunge into the unknown or run away and risk whatever was lurking in the dark. With one last look back, I stepped into the heart of the forest. I moved deeper into the woods, each step heavy with trepidation. The trees formed twisting arches above me, blocking out the sunlight and making the air feel cold and damp. I gripped the knife tighter, its weight a meager comfort. My surroundings grew quiet, the laughter fading, replaced by an eerie silence that prickled my skin. As I walked further in, I kept checking over my shoulder. Part of me expected to see them, those shadowy figures, lurking just out of sight. My pulse raced. Questions pounded in my mind. What did they want from me? Why was I drawn back here? Suddenly, I spotted a flicker of white among the branches ahead. My heart skipped as I approached cautiously. There it was, the ribbon. It hung on a low branch, swaying gently as if someone had placed it there waiting for me. I reached out, fingers trembling. The moment I touched it, I felt a rush of cold air swirl around me, and the atmosphere shifted. Before I could react, the woods came alive. Whispers filled the air, rising and falling like a dark melody. I looked around, desperate to find the source, but the shadows danced just beyond my line of sight. "Come play with us," they seemed to echo, a haunting refrain that sent a chill down my spine. Fighting the rising panic, I pulled the ribbon off the branch and held it tightly. I had to show them I was serious, that I wouldn't be pushed around. "I know what you want!" My voice was small but defiant, cutting through the whispers. "I'm not afraid of you!" And then, it happened. The shadows shifted, condensing into a shape that emerged from the darkness. A figure, draped in white. It stepped forward, and I froze. Its face was obscured, but I could feel its gaze piercing through the veil. Something about it felt familiar. My heart raced as I tried to remember why. Then it came to me. The laughter. It wasn't just mocking. It was inviting. This was the figure I encountered before. Was it the same one? I couldn't be sure, but I felt the pull again, stronger than before. The shadows around me surged, and I stumbled back, a warning cry escaping my lips. That's when the ribbon slipped from my grasp. It fluttered to the ground, and for a moment, everything stood still. The figure hesitated, the laughter suppressing into a deep giggle that rolled through the air. It pointed toward the ribbon, urging me to pick it up. Instinctively, I glanced around, feeling trapped between the beckoning figure and my own resolve. What if I obeyed? Was that the way to gain whatever they were offering? Or would it lead to my doom? I crouched down to retrieve the ribbon, and as my fingers brushed its surface, the shadows leaned closer. Their movements felt alive, almost playful. It was as if they knew something I didn't. "Join us," the figure whispered, its voice slithering through the stillness. Fear coiled around my heart, and I instinctively took a step back, but it was too late. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, gasping for breath. The cold earth pressed into my back, and I blinked at the sudden brightness. Sunlight pierced through the canopy, forming patches on the ground. I was still in the woods, but the shadows had receded, and the haunting laughter had faded into a mere echo. Pushing myself up, I shook my head to clear the confusion. I remembered the figure, the ribbon, the whispers. Yet now, it felt distant, like a fading dream. But as I looked around, I noticed something shimmering near my feet. It was the ribbon, glinting in the sunlight as if teasing me to come closer. I hesitated, a knot tightening in my stomach. Had it all been a trick, or something more sinister? I wanted to leave, to run back home where everything felt normal. But the pull was stronger than my fear. I reached down, picked it up, and wrapped it around my wrist. It felt familiar, warm even, as if it belonged to me. Suddenly, a snap of a twig startled me, and I darted my gaze to where I heard it. My heart raced as I squinted into the dense trees. At first, I saw nothing, just the rustle of leaves. But then, a faint outline emerged, a blurred shape moving cautiously among the trunks. "Hello?" I croaked, my voice trembling. I searched the area for my knife, but it was nowhere to be found. The thought of facing whatever lurked in the shadows without any protection made nausea rise in my throat. The shape stopped, and for a moment, I thought it was just my imagination. But then, it stepped into the light. It was a child, perhaps 8 or 9, with wild hair and wide eyes that seemed to hold secrets of their own. I could see the remnants of dirt and twigs smudged on their face, and they wore torn clothes that looked older than they were. "Are you lost?" they asked, tilting their head to one side. There was something unnerving about their expression, as if they were both innocent and entirely aware of something sinister lurking behind them. I think I am," I replied, trying to remain calm. "Do you know how to get out of here?" The child smiled, but it didn't reach their eyes. "You need to play the game first. They won't let you leave until you do." My stomach dropped. "What game?" "They don't like it when you're scared," the child said, their voice dropping to a whisper. "But they like it when you have fun." To my horror, the sound of laughter began to creep in again, echoing through the woods. I felt the shadows returning, weaving around the tree trunks like dark serpents. My instincts screamed at me to run, but the child stepped closer, their eyes locking onto mine. "You have to decide," they said, their expression now serious. "Are you going to play?" Something moved behind them, a flicker in the shadows that caught my eye. I wanted to shout for help, to flee, but my feet felt rooted to the ground, and that's when I realized the game had already begun. I stood frozen, caught between fear and a desperate need to escape. The child's gaze pierced through me, searching for an answer in the depths of my hesitation. "What happens if I don't?" I asked, my voice shaking. "They'll come for you," the child said matter-of-factly. "The game won't end until you play." A chill ran down my spine, and I felt the laughter rising in volume, pulling at the edges of my sanity. "Okay, I'll play," I whispered, barely able to form the words. I had no choice. The shadows seemed to thicken, curling closer as if eager to devour me. "What do we do?" I asked, trying to match the child's nonchalance, but failing. The child grinned wider. "We hide. You count, and I'll find a place. But you have to close your eyes and count to 20. If you peek, you'll lose." I nodded, my heart racing with confusion and a sense of impending doom. I turned away from the child, squeezing my eyes shut. 1, 2, 3. My voice wavered as the laughter grew louder, swirling around the trees like a storm. It was impossible to ignore. I forced myself to concentrate. I could hear rustling, things moving just beyond my field of vision. The child was definitely hiding, but the way the woods felt different now made me uneasy. 12, 13. I began to feel like I was running out of time. The counting was both a comfort and a torture. Suddenly, the laughter returned. But it wasn't just the child. There were more voices, playful yet sinister. I could barely hear myself over the noise. I hurried through the numbers, urgency flooding me. 18, 19, 20. I opened my eyes, and panic surged through me. The child was gone. In their place, I saw dark shapes skittering between the trees, whispering to one another. They had taken on a life of their own, twisting and turning like shadows cast by a flickering flame. The game had transformed into something far more wicked than I could have imagined. "Where are you?" I called, dread creeping into my gut. I won!" But only laughter echoed back, a cackling sound that chilled my blood. I darted my gaze around, searching for any sign of the child. The only response was the rustling of leaves, but this time there was a different sound, a low growl, haunting and close. My heart thudded in my chest as I realized I was no longer alone. I felt the prickling sensation of eyes watching me, waiting for my next move. The laughter faded into whispers, almost like a chorus urging me to stay, to play some more. Without thinking, I turned to run, but the shadows moved too quickly. They lunged, stretching out from the trees, blocking my path. I stumbled, feeling the cold air close in around me. My breath came out in desperate gasps. That's when I saw it, a flash of color amongst the dark. A familiar ribbon hung from a branch, swaying gently in the wind. My heart raced. "No, not again!" I shouted, but something was drawing me toward it, a terrible, insistent pull. As I reached for it, the laughter crescendoed, mingling with the growls, filling the forest with a terrifying chorus. Then everything went dark. I woke again, not with a jolt, but with a slow, creeping awareness. I was lying in the familiar, warm embrace of my own bed. Sunlight streamed through my window, and birds sang cheerfully outside. It felt deceptively normal, yet an unsettling heaviness weighed down my chest. My heart still raced, echoing remnants of fear and confusion from that haunting forest. Sitting up, I rubbed my eyes, willing the surreal memories to fade into the haze of sleep, but they clung to the edges of my consciousness like shadows. The laughter echoed faintly at the back of my mind, a reminder of the game I had unfinished. How many times had I started and ended up back in that cursed place? "Breathe," I told myself. It was a dream. Just a bad dream. But as I swung my legs over the side of the bed, a glint by my foot caught my eye. I looked down and gasped. The ribbon, still wrapped around my wrist. How had it gotten here? I could have sworn I had lost it in the woods. Panic welled up inside me as questions spiraled. Had the game followed me home? Was whatever force haunted me still waiting in the shadows? I yanked at the ribbon, pulling it free from my wrist. The faintest whisper brushed past my ear. "Come play with us." I clenched my teeth, resisting the allure. No, I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't allow myself to be drawn in again. Heart pounding, I marched to the kitchen and shoved the ribbon into a drawer, slamming it shut. It felt like sealing away a dark curse. After making a pot of coffee, I tried to act normal. I wanted to dismiss everything that happened as a figment of my imagination. But as I sat on the couch, sipping the bitter brew, my attention flickered to the fear-inducing events. I remembered the haunting figures, the child, the darkness that threatened to consume me. They were more than just nightmares. My phone buzzed on the table, startling me. I hesitated, but then picked it up, half expecting another unknown number. But there was a message from my grandmother, reminding me of an upcoming family gathering. A pang of dread shot through me, and I felt the old Victorian house in the back of my mind. Would they think I was crazy if I told them? That evening came slowly, each tick of the clock a reminder of the dark thoughts swirling within. I attended the gathering, smiles plastered on faces that felt strangely distant. The laughter was warm, but it resonated differently than before. My uncle launched into another story, and I couldn't help but glance at the family portraits on the wall. They seemed unchanged, yet I couldn't shake the feeling they were watching. At dinner, I pulled my relatives aside, my hands trembling. Did something happen during one of our family gatherings? A disappearance? Something with laughter and shadow? But their reactions only deepened my fears. Their laughter stilled, glancing at one another with apprehension. filling the air with a tension I couldn't fully understand. Finally, my aunt turned to me, eyes shadowed with concern. "You should look into it," she said delicately. "But be careful what you uncover." The cryptic warning sent chills down my spine. Did they know more than they let on? As the evening drew to a close, I left feeling more unmoored. I glanced back at the Victorian house, the shadows stretching over the porch as if they had a heartbeat of their own. Once home, I hesitated at the door. I needed to shut it all away again, put the past behind me. But as I stood there, I couldn't help but wonder if I had truly escaped, or if I would always be caught in this eerie cycle, forever playing their game. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to close the door, yet the weight of lingering uncertainty pressed down on me. I had survived the darkest night, but things had changed. I felt the unsettling truth settle in. The forest, the laughter, the child. It was all still there, waiting in the shadows of my mind, lingering like a haunting melody I couldn't quite shake. Part of me would always wonder, if the shadows truly wished to play again, would I join them? And if one day I heard their call, how would I resist? I moved through the rest of that evening, rooted in my uncertainty, knowing full well that I might never find the answers I sought. All I could do was live with the ambiguity and accept the echoing laughter, which would forever walk beside me.